Hi, today we're going to be talking about Zapier. What is Zapier? It's an online tool that was created to connect two or more apps so that we can use it to automate repetitive tasks. So Zapier is like the middleman. It takes information from one app and moves it to the other. It not only moves information, but it can manipulate that information depending on how we want that data to be handled. So today we're going to be talking about several processes that we have to do before Zapier can handle our information. We're also going to define some of the parts that we find in Zapier. For the process to start, we need to trigger it. We need to start it up. Just like when you go to an airport or a supermarket and then the door just automatically opens for you. What caused that? If you step into a certain area, it triggers the system to open the door for you. So stepping into an area is a trigger that started a task of opening the door. It's the same when you go to an ATM, you put your card in. Just putting that card in starts several processes. The system starts to look for your bank account information. It will ask you to put your PIN code, things like that. The tasks are occurring because you triggered them. The same thing occurs with Zapier. Today we're going to make a very simple example that will make you understand how Zapier works. There is a scheduling software called Calendly. It helps to schedule meetings for you automatically. There's also Google Sheets, which we can use to store information. It's just a spreadsheet. So we're going to connect these two apps using Zapier. It's actually the glue between these two applications that we're going to be working with. So if you're new to the channel, please click and subscribe so that you can get more content in the future. Now, as you can see, I'm on the dashboard in the Zapier account. So if you get in your account, you'll find something like this when you're on your dashboard. I'm using a trial account. It is the full functions. Then after 2 weeks, I'll have all the functions when I pay for them. So you'll find that what we're going to discuss here works very well even if you've got a paid account. So how do we create this Zap? How do we create this workflow? If you notice in your account, on your extreme left, there is this button which says Create Zap. Now you see as we create this Zap, we do not need to have any coding skills. We don't have to be a programmer. It's been created in such a way that connecting these apps do not need code from our part. So we just click Create Zap. Once we do that, we are taken to this page. The first thing that we need to do is to name our Zap or our workflow. In my case, I'm just going to name it this way. Naming it just makes it easy for us to identify it, because you find that when you create these tasks, you find that you might create so many that you need to identify them by the name. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to set up the trigger. So to do that, we simply click this box which says trigger. You are given an option of applications. You'll see that Zapier has so many applications that you can connect to. So our first application in this instance is Calendly. So we simply search Calendly. I'm doing this so that you know how to search, though the Calendly option was there near. Now that we've chosen the application, we need to choose what it has to do for the process to start. We click there and choose invitee created. When someone books or when an invitee is created, the process is started. Then the next task has to be done. We click continue. We now need to sign into the application itself. So there are two ways in which you can connect to an application. You can be asked for what is called an API key. You can find that within your application. Usually, when you click sign in, they'll give you documentation on how to get that API key. Or you will simply be given an option to sign in with your Google account or your username and password. In this case, we'll require an API key. So These are the links that you click to get the API key. In this case, I'm simply going to paste it. Once I paste it, I click continue. And you notice that I have been connected. So the next thing is to click continue. We will now want to test to find out if the trigger is working. So how do we test that? The next step does that for us. We click test trigger. And there we have it. We have a record which has been pulled from a previous invitation that was created. So we make use of this now by selecting the record. Once we have done that, we are now going on to the next part, which is adding the next application. That's where the task is coming through. So the next application are Google Sheets. So we search Google Sheets and click on it. So you see we are finished with Calendly here. We are going to Google Sheets. So on Google Sheets, it has been selected and we now choose what we want to do. There are so many options of what you can do, a task that you can do. In this case, I simply want to create a row that is information from the client that we are taking from Calendly. So I search for that task and say create row. So whenever a trigger happens, a row is created within Google Sheets. What does the row contain? We'll find it in the next section. First, we have to sign into Google Sheets. In this case, I'm just using my Google login. So I click the account that I need and allow. Once that is done, you can see that I am connected. So I click continue. Now we are at the action part. So the action is what needs to be done. I have to choose the drive that I'm working in. The next thing is I need to choose the spreadsheet which contains the sheets. So I'm choosing the spreadsheet called lead information. Within that spreadsheet, there is a worksheet that I need to put information which is called leads. Once I do that, I get this information. Where is it coming from? So I've already created within Google Sheets a worksheet called lead information. Here it is. And within that, there is a sheet called leads. And I've put headings there, which have name, last name, email, and phone number. So Zapier reads into that and then creates these columns for me. That's where it will then enter the information. So we now have first, last, email, and phone number. How do we put the information in? We select the part that we want to put information. Say it says first name. We look for the first name and click on it. Every time a first name comes out, it will be put here by Calendly. The second thing is to look for the last name. So we look for last name and we put it there. We also look for the email. We put it there. We also look for the phone number. So we're just going to scroll down. It's a response. Yes, that's the phone number. We've put it there. In our case, because we are putting in a Google Sheet, it usually recognizes this plus sign. You know, the number starts with a plus. So it might start to want to resolve that or to make a calculation. So to make this a text instead of a number, we simply put an apostrophe at the start. They need to be converted to text. Once we do that, we then click continue. We are now at the test stage. So if you notice in the lead information, there is no information here. We want to test, the trigger has been tested. We have seen that it works. We now want to test if this last stage of transferring information works. So we have to test the step. When it's tested, the information is going to be sent from Calendly into the sheets. And you'll notice that it says it's been successful. As you can see, the information has been updated. So whenever you do a test, that information is then sent into the application, just as we have seen in this case. Once this happens, it actually confirms that your Zap is working well. So what is your next step? You publish it. Publishing it will then turn it on. It's now active. So whenever anyone triggers in Calendly, that trigger will then push information into this part. So we can test that as well. So with Zapier, it's always important to test. So we are now testing our trigger. We're just going to put a booking. So I filled in the information and then scheduled the event. Once that's done, we then go and look into our Google Sheet. So you need to know that Zapier works with different levels. If you are in a particular package, then it takes a particular amount of time, like probably 15 minutes for it to update your Google Sheet. So the higher the package, the faster it processes your request. That's just how they made it. As you can see, Tomfly has been added to that Google Sheet. As you can see, we created a one-stage Zap. It only processes one task. But in real life, usually we make use of more of these tasks because we have to refine the information. This information we are moving from Calendly. For example, we have Tomfly here. If Tomfly makes another booking, this information will be duplicated down here. So we're creating a register here of leads. It doesn't help us if we have duplications over and over again. So how do we solve that problem? We can ask Zapier to first check if a similar email was used before within this sheet. If it was used, then no information will be added. But if it wasn't, then new information can be added down here. So how do we do that? We would have to add more tasks. So we can go back to our Zap, which is the one step Zap. We have options of adding other tasks before and even after. So before this step, we're going to add one task. This task is to search the what? The sheet. So we go to Google Sheets, and then here where it says event, we ask it to find a row within a worksheet so that we can compare it with existing emails. So we are saying continue, continue. On the action panel, as usual, we choose the drive that we want to work with. We go to the spreadsheet. We already know it's lead information. We also now go to the lookup column. So the worksheet we haven't chosen, so we choose leads. Now we want to look for emails. So that's the lookup column. It's required. So we choose the lookup column, which is the email. We can also use a supporting lookup column, but in this case, we're going to leave it as it is. We go to where it says, should this step be considered a success when nothing is found? This is very important. If nothing is found, it means there's nothing in the register. So we want this to proceed. So we actually need to allow it to proceed. So we say yes. In fact, we had left the lookup value here, which is the email. If we put the email there, this email in Calendly will be compared to the emails in the spreadsheet. Once we do that, we then click continue. So let's test to find out if this email in Calendly exists in the sheet. So we say test. As you can see, it says true. So that's working well, and then we continue. So after doing this, we then make use of a filter. Remember, if an email is found, it means the process should not continue. So how do we stop it? We make use of what we call a filter. Zapier has internal apps that allow us to modify or play around with the information. So the filter can stop or allow information to pass through. Where do we find these apps? We first have to add the step. After finding an email, we make use of a filter. So the filter, these are just conditions. It says if you find these conditions, proceed. If you don't find them, don't proceed. In our case, we are saying continue only if in Calendly's email does not contain an email which is in the spreadsheet. So what it's doing now is testing to find if the email in Calendly is found in the Google Sheet. Yes, it's found, so the process will not continue. If it's not found, the process would have continued. So we click continue. And we are done with our process. Once we do that, we click publish. So as you can see, we now have a new version, so we can just name it version 2. So we now have a version 2 that we are running, and it has more steps. So it's going to use 3 of those tasks to make sure that we don't duplicate any information within our sheet. So generally, this is how you make use of Zapier. That's how you create these apps. It's quite easy. So we just need to look into some of the functions that you need to be aware of. On the main page, it's actually there in this named Calendly Google Sheets, and it's on. You can also turn it off here. You also have something that you might also need to look into where it says apps. This is the area that shows which apps you are connected to. So in this case, we are connected to Calendly and Google Sheets. You can also follow up and check how many Zaps have occurred or how many tasks have occurred by going to this section which says Zap history. In our case, because we have one task after the trigger, if it runs, then it only eats one task. So you find that here we have utilized one task. And as you can see here, it's showing that one Zap or one task is worked. So this is where you get information on the Zaps that have run. If there are any errors, you can also see them from this section. So generally, this is how you make use of Zapier. If you need assistance in creating Zaps, you find that you've gone through and you are facing any difficulties, I'm available to assist you. You can actually book a meeting with me on Zoom. There's a link below, or you can also click a link to my Fiverr page. There you can read more information. Then I can actually assist you on a live Zoom call, or I can do it remotely. You give me information, I log into your system, and then I can create Zaps that make your life easier. So thank you very much for watching this video.